flus and things in the environment is grossly exaggerated. All right, so there's the northern cardinal. Most of you are probably seen northern cardinal. I got to tell you, I always start with this because we have a lot of people that are, obviously a lot of people are relocating to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And they come into the store. They're invariably from somewhere in the western U.S. or somewhere else. They do not have the northern cardinal there. So I always find it interesting because, I mean, some of us might take them a little for granted that this beautiful bird is just always around. But they move here and say, how do I get them? How do I get them? I've never seen one before. So it's that what they haven't had, right, that they want to see. So having this pair in your yard, obviously the male's on the left, female's on the right. I put sunflowers up there because that's one of their favorite natural foods. We supplement that, obviously, because we're the ones tearing down all the trees and plants, right? So that would be the pair that would be if you saw them in your yard. I think it's very important in the cardinal, especially as their habitat is lost. The male cardinal in particular, he goes through a traumatic effect twice a year. In the spring and the fall, he goes through a complete molt, even more so than some of our other bird species. So if you've ever seen a male cardinal, like, he looks sick. He looks like he got in a big fight. So he literally will shed all of his feathers, not all at the exact same time, shed all of his feathers and grow new ones in. That's incredibly traumatic on his body. Think like going through a major operation. And so providing the things that are necessary for that are important. Feathers, for example, are 90% protein. So him being able to find protein sources so those feathers can grow in and he can have a good wing flight is very important. The coloring on his body and his breast is primarily driven by lipids. Lipids are the main thing that's in like sunflower oils and some of the things that not just are in nature, but that we can provide to help them as well. And then my last, how am I doing?
Oh, you're good.
I know, okay.
No,
So here's another fun fact, northern cardinal. You know why it's called the northern cardinal? There's 5 species of cardinals, and since we got a visitor from Brazil, I will say, the other 4 species of cardinals are all in South America. So it's called the northern cardinal because of North America. Very loyal bird. It's great to have them in your yard. There's nothing better than a cup of coffee in the morning, sitting on the back porch, blood pressure dropping, as you hear the male call, where are you, where are you? She's like, I'm over here. You know, that's not probably what they say, but you know, as they talk to each other, because cardinals do that. The ruby-throated hummingbird. Lots of passion about this little guy. This is, when you think about amazing creatures in the world, right, and I like nature shows too, you know, this guy right here, that's the male. He's got the little ruby patch. The female, she doesn't have the ruby patch, but she's actually slightly bigger. These little guys, it's been proven through banding time and time again, these little guys generally are with us here in central Tennessee from sometime in April till sometime in October. In fact, they're kind of finishing up as they start that trip. These little guys weigh 2 pennies. Next time you have 2 pennies, pick that up. That's how much they weigh. They fly 2,000 miles to Mexico for the winter, and then they come back in the spring. Obviously, some of them do not survive. Their numbers are decreasing due to many things I could get into that we as humans do. But it's an amazing little bird, completely tenacious. I call them small and mighty, right? You have to be, because it's survival for them every day. It's sitting on a nectar feeder. They're gonna be the birds that are always coming to your nectar and pollen bearing flowers and so forth in nature, and obviously those things seem to be in short supply as well. So providing that supplement, their body is really driven off carbohydrates, right? You know, you figure their wings beat thousands of times a minute, right? So they are burning energy very fast, and that carbohydrate provides them that nourishment to do that. So the male, some of our species, males are rock star. In the ruby-throated hummingbird world, he is not. He does his one contribution, and then he's a bachelor the rest of the year. But mom, she's a total rock star. She sits on that nest, is not fed by the male. She'll do that for many days without eating those. The nestlings will hatch, right? She'll raise them up. She'll teach them. If you've ever seen a hummingbird, like, what's that really tiny one? Well, that's the juveniles. She's bringing them, teaching them how to find foods and so forth. So amazing, amazing little bird. Their numbers are decreasing. So obviously whatever we can do conservation-wise to support them, or put bright flowers out. We all love flowers, right? Put those bright reds and oranges, whatever, and they're very attracted to that. The eastern bluebird, we talked about these guys a little bit. Big time bug and fruit eaters. As you can see, I had to find a pic of them eating a little caterpillar and worm, because that's what they really love. The male's on the left, female's on the right. These two are kind of like the cardinals. They're an awesome pair. They both contribute. They both feed. He will bring food as she's on the nest. Sometimes they'll do the opposite. They'll both hunt. They're just always working, extremely committed mom and dad for their babies as they have those. And a lot of people can relate to them because they will adapt that whole life cycle process like we were talking about a few minutes ago in your yard. So you can see the process from, them having the eggs. I love to recommend a birdhouse we've got. It's got a peeking panel in it so you can look in and see the eggs, and you can see them when they hatch. You can see that whole process. And through our conservation efforts in the United States, they were actually considered endangered at one time. They're affected, they're very sensitive to poisons and all that junk we put on our yards and that kind of stuff. But their numbers have come back significantly because we've made a conscious effort to not just let nature take care of it. We've provided some of those things for them as well. Beautiful, beautiful little birds to have around. The blue jay, we talked about him. I got to find a picture of the peanut in his mouth. If you want blue jays committed to you, put some raw in the shell peanuts out. So we're tricking them, right? They're going to be an acorn eater, walnut eater, nuts like that. They don't know a peanut grows in the ground, right? But we put that out for them. That gives them that high protein because it's a very strong bird, needs a lot of protein. So peanuts are great to put out for them. They stay with you all year round as well. And I already shared the big fact on them that they're the town crier. They serve a very useful purpose when there's that nuisance outdoor cat or hawks or other things in your yard. The American goldfinch. A lot of people have a lot of passion about this little guy too. So the first misnomer I want to put to bed here is actually here in central Tennessee, where actually this is an awesome overall birding area because a lot of our species don't migrate away from us. And this is one of the examples of that. People think, oh, the goldfinch left. Well, that's the male, and he molts in the fall. So he'll become more like the female, and he'll become kind of this brown. Sometimes they still have a little bit of faint on their breast and so forth, but they molt into that more safe color for the winter, right? There's no leaves. You got to blend in with all those brown trees and so forth, but they stay here, and they're here year round. Beautiful little bird. They'll flock together. A little more nomadic. They'll adopt you maybe for a week or two. They might move to somebody else, come back. And feeding them is a little bit more specific if you want them to be in your yard, to have Niger seed and things like that out for them. But beautiful little birds, especially when they flock together. There's no more beautiful scene in the summer, right? When you've got 8 or 10 of the males coming to have a little male party, right? They're all over the place. Just beautiful, beautiful little birds. The Carolina chickadee, one of my wife's favorite. I kind of put the chickadee in a similar, it's a way different bird obviously than the hummingbird, but kind of put it in that tough rock star family there, because the chickadee doesn't even migrate when it lives in Canada. These guys are tough. So what they do, they are amazing. I mean, ornithologists love to study them. In the winter, at night, they can be in sub-zero temperatures, further north. They go into a torpor state, which almost coma-like. Their heart barely beats, and they go into that slow torpor state. They puff their bodies up, they become like a little puff ball, and they can survive the night, even in those really, really tough climates. And he's just a little guy. Chickadee's just a little bird. They'll take to you, they'll trust humans, they'll come up right by you. It's an awesome little bird. They got a beautiful little song. Unfortunately, I have a little hearing loss. It's very high frequencies. My wife says, chickadees. I'm like, you can't hear it. Great bird to have at your feeders in your yard. Tough little guy, too. The mourning dove. So different people have different thoughts on the mourning dove. Me personally, I think it's a beautiful, wonderful bird. I, at my house, call them my cleanup crew. They're perfectly happy to run around the ground. They'll clean things up. They'll make their deposits, which obviously makes things grow. They'll do all that. So You know, birds are awesome for that, by the way. You know, if it's in one end, it's out the other. They don't digest all that seed material, so they're amazing plant. I was going to say plant planters. Plant planters? They're amazing horticulturalists. I don't know, something like that. But the mourning dove, that coo sound that they make, they're very prolific in their reproduction. They can have 4 or 5 broods a year. So, you know, if the environment's right, all of a sudden you could have a lot of doves around. Different than a standard pigeon, like you're thinking an urban, like a rock pigeon or something. Much different animal. And I also love, they've got that cup in their wing. So if you ever hear them take off and you hear that squeak sound, it's that cup. You know, kind of like when I was a kid, when, you know, yeah, they do that, but theirs sounds cool. You know, it's kind of that squeak sound as they take off. That's coming from their wings as they go into flight. They're obviously a target of hawks because it takes them a bit to get launched, you know, so hawks love to pick them off. But once they're in the air, if you watch them, if you've got like, especially like a field or a big open backyard, they're fun to watch fly. They're kind of like the penguin of the sky. You know, penguins just dart around. That's once they get in flight, they're like that. All right. Tufted titmouse. This is another one of my wife and I. How we doing on time?
You're good.
We're good? Okay.
Yes.
So the tufted titmice is very, very common around here in central Tennessee. It's another bird that some areas don't have, so we're very fortunate to have this little guy around. If I would have gotten the profile shot, he's kind of cool because he's got the little mohawk, and he's a very loud singer, especially in the morning. And I don't do bird mimics very often because I really mess them up, but if you hear that one kind of doing Peter, 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 it sounds like they're saying Peter, right? That's most likely this guy right here. They love to make that call as they're talking to their mate and so forth. They love little peanuts. They love the bigger shells. And I love to watch how they fly. If you're sitting on the back porch, you see one come to your feet or flies away, they fly like this. It's just their natural elusiveness as they fly away, is they fly in that pattern. So, and they're also with us year round here in Tennessee. Some areas they migrate, but they're with us all year. They readily come to feeders and hang out. All right, American robin. Everybody knows the American robin. So it's called the American robin because there's a European robin. They're actually quite different species, but they look similar. The American robin if you've got a bird bath, they are a very prolific bather. They love to bathe all the time. So if you want to see robins having fun, have a bird bath out, and they'll be the ones in there splashing all around. They don't come to a feeder too much because they're mostly ground insect eaters. So as long as you're not putting all that junk on your yard, killing all the stuff off, right, these guys can get down there and they can eat some bugs. They can, you know, do that sort of thing. All right. So we are down the last minute. He told me. I didn't know the rule. But now I do. Thank you. White-breasted nuthatch. I'm going to go real quick now, just to show you the shots of them. This guy is so cool. If you got these in your yard and you've got some trees, they're so cool because they climb down the tree. It's just so fun to watch. You know, this bird coming down the tree. They're like little torpedoes in their shape. They're awesome little guys. They'll get a little nut and you'll just hear them pet, 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 because their beak's not real strong like a woodpecker, but they're going to get in there. They're going to get that out. Now this guy here, red-bellied woodpecker, luckily for us in central Tennessee, these are very, very common here. And in some areas they are not. So people are like, ooh, I want to see that red-bellied woodpecker. Or the big one. If you've ever had pileated, the pileated woodpecker, that big giant guy that looks almost like a pterodactyl, those are fairly common here. They're just shy. So those woodpeckers are fun to have around. And oh, by the way, majority of the time when they're knocking on stuff, they're just claiming their territory. You know, I know once in a while they tear stuff up, but most of the time they're just claiming their territory. They're not purposely destroying your stuff. The smaller woodpeckers, the hairy and downy, very, very common around here. Those are females. I know they're females because if they were males, they'd have a little red strip on their head. Female doesn't have that, but the male does. They love to come to our suet feeders. They'll always be there first thing in the morning and just before dark. House finch, very, very common bird around here. Males on the right, females on the left. Carolina wren. If you hear in the morning, if you pull it up on Merlin and just play the sound of a Carolina wren, you hear that pretty little song they sing. This little tiny bird can belt out this loud, beautiful song. They'll do that in the morning. I love having them in my yard. And then the common grackle. Lots of those around here. They can kind of Now that one is a little bit more towards aggressive, but it's one of our native birds. They're just doing bird stuff. I say birds just doing bird stuff. This guy's not native, the European starling, and they can wreak a little bit of havoc, but they're very common around here. Song sparrow, just the name implies, they sing that beautiful song. And oh, by the way, I could go on with dozens and dozens of these. We really do have a wonderful birding area here in Tennessee, but I'll just show you the last few pictures because we're wrapping up here. Dark-eyed junco, I do want to talk about him for just a second. The dark-eyed junco migrates to us. So when we think, oh, birds leave in the winter, we have many species, and I could rattle off a bunch that migrate to us from places like Canada and Michigan and so forth, and the dark-eyed junco is one of those. I mean, we look forward to when they arrive in the fall because they're going to stay with us through the winter. It's a beautiful little puffball. They'll be like the chickadee. They'll just puff up in the winter because that's their down feathers, right? Hold that air in. That's how they stay a little warmer. And then that takes me to one of our other, if you're dealing with birds, you're dealing with this guy too. Yeah, the gray squirrel, extremely common around here. And before, I've had every opinion from, I'm not going to say what people do to them, to people that love to take care of them and give them their own little amusement parks and everything in between. But I'll tell you, studies have found these guys plant a tremendous amount of trees. Because every fall they cache nuts. They stash them away. Hundreds and hundreds of them. They don't go back and find every one of those. They dig and bury it. So they've actually literally planted it. So I'm going to defend the squirrels slightly. I know some of us, they've messed with our attic. They've done different things. But so that's what I have.
You mentioned two things, dark skies and bird casts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is an important conservation initiative that right now, especially through the fall, the tracking of birds and where they are has been done through years. A lot of us track like the birds we've seen, and then ornithologists know the migration pattern. So what he's referring to is that we get in these periods of year where it's extremely heavy. And right now it's extremely heavy. And most of these birds, especially the songbirds that we all know and love, they migrate at night. So they have amazing magnetic ability and also landmark ability to make these migrations, and we don't want them to get lost or get turned around. You know, even that little cartoon movie that was out a while back, that was actually fairly accurate. You know, they can get turned around. So the ability to have that darkness and let that drive their migration at night is very, very important. Yeah.
And one thing I might mention, I've walked around the new court building and I find dead birds around it because the windows are all lit up at night.
Yeah. Windows are a major thing. I think when we think of the major things and what the ornithologists have studied, obviously habitat loss. Sorry guys, that's us. I mean, I know our civilization grows, right? But that's number one. Outdoor cats is number two. Poisons in our environment that we all put down is the next one. And then those windows, that's a big one too. They see the reflection. Birds are pretty smart, but they don't understand the physics of reflection.
You know, the McCormick place in Chicago was killing thousands of birds every night during migratory periods, even though it's a low building. And they found a film to put in the windows, and the mortality has decreased 1,000-fold.
Oh yeah.
And so you can put something in windows that will eliminate that reflection. The other thing was that I was mentioning birdcast. If you go to Cornell University Birdcast, so for this past week, for example, it'll tell you they use weather radar to count birds that are migrating every hour. And over in Murfreesboro in the last few weeks, there have been millions of birds migrating. And each night. So you can see the numbers every hour and also the species. It's really an amazing website. It's Birdcast, Cornell University.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jeff will be here for a little while. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.